Hi, everybody. I'm Nina Boski for Mental Health Mondays, and I am so excited about our next guest because every time I'm around her, she just lights up a room. Her name is Spryte Loriano. Hi, Spryte. How are you?
I'm awesome today. Thank you, Nina.
Well, before we get started, though, I am going to share just a little bit of her background, just to let you know, the audience, what you're in store for. She's a visionary humanitarian, a conscious business and media enthusiast. She's helped transform thousands of lives around the world. So here are some highlights from her career. She has been taken from bedsides of the sick and suicidal to boardrooms of billion-dollar companies, raising millions of dollars for clean water and women's empowerment. She really does walk her talk. She co-organized the largest food distribution in the US for speaking to audiences of 13,000. And she's a self-proclaimed citizen and miracle muse. I love that. And she's so magical, just her presence alone. She's obsessed with inspiring herself, but others also, and to just live the most highest vibrational awakened life. So with that said, Miss Spryte, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Nina. So excited to be here with you. I love that you're doing this Mental Health Mondays. It's fantastic.
Well, I think also, one of the reasons why I thought I wanted to bring you on, we started this around mental illness and addiction, and the fact that you have been all over the world helping, thousands of people in different countries, not just the US, and you've seen the kind of the darkest of the dark in terms of, cultures that don't have a lot of money, third world countries, and have worked with people. So, not only just in the clean water, but really going in and helping the souls of these people. And so when you said you're a global citizen, I mean, every time I talk to you, it's like, well, where are you today? Right. I never know where I'm going to find you, but I think one of the reasons why we started this is, around Marilyn Monroe and her mental illness and addiction, but she's really a symbol for being a human being, just like all of us, and has suffered some of this stuff. And some of the things that you have done is really helping to awaken people's lives. So we're going to backdoor this a little bit on a global, because you do so many different things. How do you awaken people's lives?
Oh gosh, that's such a great question. I've done that in a lot of different ways throughout the years. I actually am trained as an emotional trauma therapist, and I had a practice in Beverly Hills and Santa Barbara for 6 years, helping people to move through depression, anxiety, and also physical disorders, working in holistic clinics with acupuncturists and naturopathic doctors, like, when they couldn't help someone move to a more balanced state, either emotionally or physically, I was like that last resort. So, utilizing my tools that I learned that way, and also for just, decades of personal development and learning all different types of tools, because truthfully, I believe that everyone has, we're all individual, unique beings. And just like every key cannot open every lock, we all are able to access our wellness and our health through various ways. And so I've been blessed to use a lot of different ways and tools to help people. And I have my favorites. Absolutely. that we'll talk about today, for sure, and have really learned how to fast track shifting emotional and physical things as well.
Well, I think it's so important right now. We're still in a pandemic. I am noticing in my own practice with coaching people from December till now, and it's actually not getting better, even though you can kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel. People are tired. People are fatigued. They may not even know what's bothering them. So what would you suggest in terms of helping somebody that may have anxiety, like Marilyn. She was diagnosed as bipolar, which is, you have these really strong highs and then you get really, really low. A lot of creative people, suffer from that and they don't have bipolar, but this very kind of manic energy and then just a complete withdrawal. So what would you say to somebody who may just be having anxiety or maybe even acute disorders, and how could you, through your method, be able to help them?
So the very first thing that I always love to talk about, Nina, is that it's important that we recognize that we are vibrational beings. That's the first thing. We've got to know that we are electrical, that every single thing that actually exists that we can see is vibrating at a particular frequency. And that frequency can be measured scientifically. It's called megahertz. And I'm not going to go into the whole science of all of that right now, because we'll go down a rabbit hole. But that's the first thing, is recognize that we are vibrational and that we're emotional beings, and that our emotion is actually running everything. So when our emotional state is in a lower frequency, it's actually affecting the things that we're experiencing in life, what we're attracting to us and all of that. When we're at a higher frequency, we're able to shift and attract things like that we're really wanting. So first, it's really educating people about that we're vibrational, and that, and that when we are spiraling in a lower frequency or a negative emotion, depression, anxiety, and when so what happens in the brain is that we literally get caught in like this pattern. It's called neural pathways and patterns, right? So in order to shift that, you need to break the pattern or pattern interrupt, right? So there's a lot of different ways.
Almost like a disruptor.
That's right. So you need a disruptor. Exactly. And there's a lot of different ways to do that. And I've really discovered what I know is a fast track way of doing that. Not just, I haven't just discovered this. I mean, scientists have discovered this. I'm just grateful like that they have. But really it's like, recognizing first of all that we can interrupt the pattern, and that we need to, that it is up to us to do that work to interrupt it. And
and also just on that note, if you think about it, what's the famous quote from Albert Einstein? Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. And most people think they can will their way through changing a pattern, but you and I know that that isn't always the case, right?
Thank you. No, that's not the case at all. In fact, we cannot will our way at all. And our brain is actually hardwired for safety. So it's hardwired for looking for problems. Okay. So to save us from, the tigers and the bad things, but it's also hardwired for unlimited potential. Thank God, So we have both, and it's up to us to, first of all, recognize that we have both and that we need to be able to shift that. And so what I have discovered is that the fastest way to pattern interrupt is actually through smell. And this is scientifically proven. The olfactory nerve goes right to the limbic part of the brain. The limbic part of the brain is where emotion it happens, right? So it's where emotion is happening, and it's where memory is stored. So you've got the olfactory nerve that goes right to the amygdala, to the hypothalamus, to the hypothalamus, to the hippocampus. And all of those areas are where we experience emotion and reacting, and also memory. It's where so all of a sudden we find ourselves very upset because somebody just said boo. And we went, ah, well, they just said boo, but it was our reaction based on our memory and those neuro patterns that created that. So there's a way to actually very fast through smell to be able to shift those patterns. And I love teaching people about this, because this is actually, it's very ancient. This is ancient. This is thousands and thousands of years ago, what people knew how to do. And we've lost this very important science because of, you know, the birth of allopathic medicine. And I'm not putting allopathic down. I'm saying that it's important for us to really now bridge the gap between the power of allopathic and medicine and the power of plant medicine.
Well, and I think that it, you know, for so many people that don't look at that, you know, in their own lives, right? It becomes, you know, or they don't believe in it. The reality is it's been around for thousands and thousands of years. As if lasted this long, there's a reason why it's lasted this long. And I think you and I are both in the belief that it's not one or the other. It's looking at what you need in order to improve your health. Each have its merit, but together, if you open up that space to know which way should I go or which path should I go, it makes it a lot easier for the human being versus just being closed down saying, oh, I don't believe in any of that stuff. Because that's what happens too, a lot of times.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and you know, the truth is we do live in a society where I am required by law to say that, disclaimer here, I am not a doctor, I am not a scientist, please consult your physician with anything that you've got, okay? Because we do have laws of the land that are so prominent with one voice that it's really difficult for people. So it's not like a blame thing, you know, it's difficult for people to understand what the truth is. And right. So the,
well,
and it's also,
I think what you're saying is really important, because the reality is that you have positives and negatives in each one, right? So the positive in terms of, you know, kind of, I'll say Western medicine for that purpose, not that it is Western medicine, but just kind of, you know, a symptom oriented, you know, let's treat the symptom and not the root cause, is very much controlled by big business. And so big business doesn't necessarily want that big business to go away. So the reality is we're dealing with realities of everything that's happening in our culture right now, with a breakdown of these paradigms right now. But I do think that if people can be open to plant-based or some of these alternative ways, integrated medicine, you have more of a holistic approach versus, oh, I'm only going to take a pill and hope my problem goes away, right? Which is really what happened with Marilyn back in the day. Most people do know this if you're listening to this show or listening to any of our podcasts, is that Marilyn, I don't know if you know this, Spryte, but 3 months before she passed, she was prescribed by her doctors 900 pills, okay? 700 of them were sleeping pills. And out of those 900, they were heavy barbiturates that actually, you know, made her issues of bipolar even worse. They weren't even treated. Now, it's back in 1962. They didn't have as much knowledge as they have now. I'm sure 50 years from now, they'll be saying, I can't believe they were doing it this way, right? But you know, the reality is that wasn't ever going to get her better. It was just going to treat a symptom, you know?
So yeah, I have a lot to say about that. Gosh, do we have 2 hours? So first of all, God bless Marilyn. And, yes, we are more advanced in some ways and not nearly advanced enough when it comes to pharmaceuticals. And I will just say this, is that pharmaceuticals, every single pharmaceutical that you've got in your medicine cabinet, to all of your listeners out there, were created by looking at a plant. They were created by looking at what a plant does. Hello, fly. What a plant does naturally, and they mimic through synthetic what a plant already knows how to do. Now, the reason that companies don't, and pharmaceuticals don't use plants, is because they can't patent it and they can't control that environment. But so that's important for people to recognize, because a lot of people go, okay, well, I've got this aspirin, or I've got this this pill over here that's going to help me sleep, and then I have this bottle here. This is my story. I have this bottle here of frankincense, and so the frankincense actually knows exactly where to go in the body and what to tell the body to go. Zonk. Now, I actually didn't sleep for 4 years. So I started menopause, I'm 55, and I started menopause when I was 50, and I didn't want to go on hormones and put, again, synthetics into my body and all of that stuff. So I tried everything naturally, right? And I did the melatonin, and I did this, and I did that, and I changed my diet, and I did like everything I could,
with that, huh?
right? And I literally did not sleep. Sometimes I woke up every single hour. I'd fall asleep, and then I'd wake up every hour. And then the most I ever slept at once was 2 hours, until I got so completely exhausted, and then I might sleep for like 4 or 5. So I went through that for 4.5 years. And when I discovered what I love talking about, which is the Young Living essential oils, I put frankincense on my feet. Okay. I was told to put it on my feet, and I slept 6 hours that night. I have since every single night slept at least 4 hours in a row. And if I wake up, I just put it right back on my feet and I go to sleep.
So
And
that's a great tip for people, whether you're in menopause or just have sleep issues. So I think
so many people do right now too, right?
Yeah. I certainly went through that myself, but I would say to anybody, it's not an either or. These are the ability to start introducing, for some people that are there's a lot of people that are actually, at least here in the United States, and I'm sure in Europe too, is that you have an integrated approach. I think that's where our society is going. It's not an either or. And so trying some of these things, sometimes it's hit and miss. I remember when I was going through menopause, there was, oh my gosh, black cohosh, right? For me, it worked really well. For my friend, didn't work at all, right? So I also think you have to use what works, and trying more natural ways is much better than working with your system versus putting we have a lot of foreign things, whether it's our food, our waters, everything is not as pure as it once was. So we have to be very mindful of what we're putting on in our bodies. And I know with a lot of kind of vegan and GMO, lack of GMO, with these food ingredients going into our bodies and skin and all that stuff, is that the United States and the FDA, what was it that I heard a statistic, is that they allow everything and just don't allow like 6, whereas Europe, they don't allow like, I don't know, 1,500 chemicals. But we and our products, our everyday products, are being marketed as organic, and they're far from it, So I think your message is really, really important in regards to helping people awake to their fullest potential. And so let me ask you a question. You're very multifaceted. So in my opinion, awaken is kind of what you do. So whether you're working with in a village in Africa, right? Or you're working, with clients in Beverly Hills, or you're working, in production, you also have a media part of you that I'd like to integrate this into the conversation, because you're also helping people awaken through personal growth. So tell us a little bit about that as well.
Oh, cool. Thank you. Yeah, I love talking about that. So I believe that we are bombarded by toxicity in lots of different ways, right? And so toxicity can look like chemicals that end up in, like what you were talking about, in like everything that's around us, and we don't even recognize it. Toxicity also occurs through the media, right? So because it is the media, like literally can poison our thoughts and bombard us with particular thoughts, and so that we don't even, recognize we're having a negative thought. And I'd love for you to remind me, if you can, to talk about the frequency of thoughts, because this is really an important piece. So, so our media, one of the, again, fastest ways that I believe we can globally help to shift the frequency of the planet, I mean, ourselves for sure, but also the planet, is through what we're watching and paying attention to with media. So when we're scrolling through social media or anything else, and we're feeling our vibration, we're feeling our energy, we're feeling our emotion, or even some people might feel like a sickness or something in their body. They might all of a sudden feel like a weirdness in their tummy as they're going through. Now, these are all really important clues that what you're watching or listening to or hearing is not supporting your highest vibration and your highest potential.
I want to share, just jump in here real quick about a point, and I want to make sure we continue, but it's such an important one. And I just thought of it when you were saying what you're saying. So we're talking about food. We're talking about, plant-based, products versus, the synthetic ones that are manufactured, run by big business. And the interesting thing with the media, the mainstream media, right, is that it's run by big business. And you and I have been around the block a few times to know what marketing is and what was happening in media today, which is, I want you to feel an emotion so I can make you fearful or some kind of trigger to get mad, get fearful, etc. And I think we, talk about awaken. And I hope people who are listening to this message don't think that CNN or Fox or any of these other big media outlets are out to share with you the ability to bridge and integrate the differences. And it's really interesting because we're talking about, kind of synthetic medicine versus plant-based. You start talking about, different sides of different issues. And yet, we all, like, if you think about health, we all want to feel better. Doesn't matter if you believe in one side or the other, we want to feel better. And this is just my opinion. I want to see what you think. What do you think about an integrated approach versus one or the other? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, you can have things that entertain, that sizzle on camera, because you have to have listeners. You can't have people just going, okay, or watchers, audience, but you also have to have nutritional stuff. You can't be having candy all day long. Right.
Exactly.
You can tell I'm passionate about this, can't you?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I feel like, so that I've been producing a conscious reality TV show for the last 4.5 years, and it's called Awakening Giants. And it was really, our approach is that we wanted to provide a genre that people really like and have been watching for the last 10 years, which is reality TV. But we wanted to infuse reality TV with consciousness, with like real, not just inspiration, because there are shows that do that, that like, oh, that's inspiring and it makes you feel happy and it makes you, and it uplifts you, but that really provides a basis for transformational shifts in education. Like, how do I, first of all, like, even recognizing things like we're talking about here, like, I am a vibrational being and I actually do have choice, and how do I make those choices, and being able to watch people actually go through experiences where they are being faced with their greatest patterns, mental patterns that keep them stuck, and how are they breaking through them, and in fun, entertaining ways, like going down the largest waterfall in the world, like, oh my God, my palms are sweating just saying that, right?
Did you go down the water? Did you do that yourself?
Well, I would have, no. But I would have, but I needed to stay with the camera crew. But yes, I would have.
You know what though? I love that because both, you know, you and I are in the transformational space. We're around a lot of personal growth leaders, some of them making, selling millions and millions of books. And, you know, the reality is that we're all human beings. And I don't know about you, but I love when a personal growth expert or transformational leader or anybody that is, you know, in a leadership position shares with them their struggles. Because I learn more from that versus I'm going to be the guru and tell you how your life can be perfect, because nobody's life is perfect. It doesn't really matter, you know? So it doesn't matter whether you're the president or the janitor, you know, it's like the reality is we all have stuff.
Yeah, gosh, I love that too deeply. And it's really the, you know, authentic leaders are the leaders that I really love hanging around with. And you and I both are good friends with Jack Canfield. And it's one of the amazing things that I've loved being with him this last year.
Tell people who Jack Canfield is, given the fact that they might not know who he is. Okay. I know who he is, and everybody will know who he is when you say what he's known for.
Yes, exactly. So he's the co-creator of the Chicken Soup for the Soul series, which has actually sold almost as many books, I believe, as the Bible, like 500 million copies, which is absolutely insane. He's in the Guinness Book of World Records for being the only person on the New York Times bestsellers list 7 times in a row at the same time. I mean, it's insane, you know.
It's insane.
Harvard educated psychologist. He's read almost more books probably than anybody that I know. I have great respect for him. And he actually was the one that really got my listening this last year around diving deeper into essential oils and recognizing that they have a real power to shift neural pathway patterns very fast. And because he started experiencing that with the people that he was teaching after, you know, decades and decades of doing this work, and then seeing people shift much faster. But just quickly getting back to why I brought him up is because we've been together taking groups of people globally, like hundreds of people globally over this last year, and taking them through emotional challenges on Zoom, where he, as a leader, is just like, you know, all of us right there authentically going through the changes and the transformations. And I mean, this is a guy who's, you know, been around the block a lot and has been discovering a lot of patterns that he still had that he didn't even realize he had, that was holding him back from experiencing even greater love with his wife, for example, and greater intimacy, and very vulnerably showing and sharing that journey with us, you know, in you know, Zoom calls and things like that, utilizing these plant botanicals. So I do respect that. Because as leaders, we have to keep growing ourselves.
Well, and also the other thing with what you're saying, Spryte, I think it's really, really important too, is that you're talking about, you know, I think a lot of things that we do in our lives, we're talking about creating enough energy in our days when we're getting so bombarded to be able to help us. And a tool that can help you instantly shift the brain patterns, kind of doing a full circle moment here with you around that, is that, you know, what can you do to help yourself shift? And the Young Living oils that you talk about, just briefly, I want you, I have 2 things I want to, you know, and then we'll wrap up here. But one of the things I want you to talk about is plant-based oils. It's not one size fits all. So you've got to get a very specific oil that is not, and I'm not promoting, oh, it's got to be Young Living, but tell us a little bit about what they should be looking for, whether it's Young Living or something else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so exactly. Essential oils are not all created equal, just like that's like saying all cars are created equal, right? We know that they're not. We also, like, think about it this way. This is very important. And I know that people aren't really thinking about this, is that when you go to the store and you buy something that's an organic fruit, do you think that that organic fruit or vegetable is the same as what is like, if you're at a farmer's, farmer's market and you've got all this organic and you've got all these different booths, are those all the same? No, they're not, because, and this is what's really important, is again, remembering, so like the standards, the FDA standards don't really cover everything. Okay. So you might have an organic farm over here that has been chemical free for 25 years. You might have one that's been 50 years over here. You might have an organic farm that is actually providing water that is purified water, that does all that, harvests the food at specific times, that's different than this. And this goes back to frequency. The frequency of that food is going to be different. And this is really fascinating stuff.
Yes,
and
that was my last comment I wanted to talk to you about. You were talking about frequency of thoughts. So let's talk about that and frequency, what you were talking about. Let's put that all together.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah. So I really want people to see this.
Yes.
Okay. So when it comes to frequency, so this is exciting. So the frequency of a normal human body, when it's healthy, vibrates between 62 and 68 megahertz. Okay, that's a healthy, normal body. Now, when we
know if you are, how do you know if you are?
If you're vibrating at that.
Like how would you know? Like how would you test it?
Okay, well, you can test like muscle testing. You've heard of?
Oh yeah.
Muscle testing. Okay, so you could muscle test like that. I don't actually have a machine like that. There are some different kinds of machines that don't actually test megahertz like that. You can't actually just go buy something off the street that will test.
Yes, you have to go to a professional to help you with that.
Right, but there are different types of things, like there's a Healy machine, that you can look up online. A lot of people are using that to understand better their frequency and their vibrational aspects of themselves. Okay, so there are different tools that you can use like that, but I don't know of any. Your listeners might know of one. Tell me if you do, because I'll get it, that actually do megahertz. But okay, so 60 to 68. Now, when you have a negative thought, you're actually bringing your megahertz down to about 58. And when you have, oh, no wonder our world is just feeling so down and heavy right now. Look at all the negative thoughts out there. Wow. And then watch this. So then when flu and cold starts being able to actually enter your cells, okay, where like if you're vibrating at a higher rate than that virus that's at a low rate, okay, it's not even going to be able to affect you. But as your state lowers, then that virus is able to attack you. That's important right now. We're in the midst of a pandemic. This is why all this is so, it's connected. Well, and I think the main message, what you're saying here, and I think this is important for the audience to know, is that what you focus on expands. And you can do this with a very simple muscle test. If you think about something negative, and you do a muscle test with just your arm, as my arm goes in and out of my screen. If you're thinking something negative, it's going to be weaker, and you could test it out. You start thinking loving thoughts, it gets stronger. So this isn't just woo-woo, guys. I want you to really realize this. Thoughts become things. And so it's not saying, hey, if you don't think good thoughts, you're going to get a virus. We're not saying that. But what we are saying is it's going to contribute to a weakened immune system. And you have to understand, it's not just about taking, NyQuil or Dayquil and thinking you're going to feel better. You're going to have to start to look at your insides, not just what you're putting in your body from the outside. And I really want the audience to understand this, because we are moving into a world of integration. And I know for myself, I can't stay on the sidelines anymore and say, oh, it's okay if you do this or this. It's really about integration of philosophies, from what's going on in the world stage with politics all the way to what we're putting in our body. We got to awaken. So I think that's really, really important. And your work in the world, Spryte, we're talking about specific subjects,
But I just want the audience to know, look at that little sparkle that you have in your eye. I know you're going to say something else afterwards. So I'm going to give you one more point after. I know it was so funny. I said, oh yeah, we're going to talk 30, maybe 40 minutes, right? That's the usual show. I should know better, right? But I just want to say that it's really impactful for you to be able to touch people's lives and inspire them, because the minute you walk in the room, you light up the room with people around you. So I'll let you finish your thought, and then we'll wrap up today's show. At least
Awesome.
I hope we will.
Thank you. Okay. Yes, I'll be quick because I left talking about frequency on a lower frequency, and I want to let people know what to do, what they can do to lift their frequency, things they can control. And so when you have a positive thought, you're lifting your frequency up to about 78. When you do meditation, you're lifting it up to about 80 to 82. Okay, this is why we know meditation is so important. It literally lifts your frequency. And I don't know that your audience has ever been told that before and put it into that context. And then when you're utilizing a pure essential oil that is pure and those molecules have not been fractionalized, or it doesn't have fillers in it or anything like that, or chemicals, you know, that it's organic and it's distilled correctly, okay? That is the highest frequency of anything alive on the planet. So frankincense is 147, rose is up to 340, balsam fir is the highest thing on the planet, which is 543. And we've heard that sound and music at the vibration, so the megahertz of 540 to 580 is that frequency that they're saying we want to be in, right? So you can also do that through literally by utilizing a high frequency oil as well. So it's exciting and fun.
I love it. So, well, and you, and the fact that you, I think if I can take anything away from a lot of things that you've said today, but one of the things that I think is important is to keep an open mind and to open yourself up to new ways of being. If something isn't working in your life, I'm talking to the audience now, that try something new. If you haven't tried plant-based, oils, and particularly, start experimenting with different tools to see how you feel, because it's no longer the day that you go to the doctor and say, oh, I have something wrong with me, fix me. We have to take responsibility for our own lives, our own bodies, mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual health. And I think that, your work in the world, not only in terms of helping people in the areas that we talked about, but I've seen you go into, your work with, into villages and helping the villages and the people of that village. And, you're uplifting humanity. So you are a wonderful muse for all of us, but an in-depth and very deep soul muse on that. So I just really, really appreciate you taking the time. And do they have a website? Do you have a website that they can go to?
Thank you. There's a couple of different ways, yes, that they can get in touch with me. One, they can message me on Facebook, Instant Messenger, Spryte Loriano on Instant Messenger, and just mention you, Nina, or your show, so I know where they heard of me from. And also at my website for Young Living, so they can go and learn more about the oils there at myyl.com/Spryte. I'm sure you'll put those things on.
I will.
Anything, yeah, for sure.
You know a little bit about production, don't you?
Yes, exactly. So those are kind of the two easiest ways to get in touch with me. They can also go to SpryteLoriano.com. So yeah.
They'll find you. Yeah, they'll find you for sure. So I just want to say thank you so much for being on the show today, and how fun. And I can't wait to see you in person again when we can get back together, because it's going to be a lot of fun too. So
I agree. I can't wait to see you too, Nina. Thank you. God bless you for doing this and for doing your work on mental health. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And for my audience here, for Marilyn Behind the Icon, along with American Icon and Life Bites, thank you so much for watching Mental Health Mondays. I'll see you next week.